Recently, I have become very passionate about trying to educate my audience about horse care because there are a lot of people out there that own horses that do not have knowledge when it comes to basic health care. So today, to start it off, we are going over the 10 most common mistakes that horse owners make that I want you to avoid so that your horse can be as healthy and as happy as possible. Hey everyone, if you're new here, my name is Katrina, and today we are going over the top 10 mistakes that horse owners make when it comes to their horse's health. And if at all possible, I want you guys to be avoiding these mistakes because, to be all honest, they can definitely be detrimental to your horse's health. They can cause them all sorts of pain, discomfort, and not to be dramatic, they can be fatal. The first item on my list is overfeeding or underfeeding your horse. And I think I shouldn't say that. I personally see more often than not people overfeeding their horses. Overfeeding your horse can lead to a laundry list of issues. So not only are they just obese and they just don't look good, but it can cause all sorts of problems when it comes to their joints, ligaments, and tendons. A horse's body is not physically designed to be carrying that much excessive weight, just like our human body is not designed to carry excess weight. You have things that start to develop like metabolic diseases, which are very, very difficult to manage and are not fun for the horse. Of course, you can run into things like colic or laminitis, all of which are just horrendous to deal with and not at all fun for the horse. And yes, sometimes they can be fatal for the horse. So overfeeding your horse is definitely something that you want to avoid at all costs. Same goes for underfeeding. We don't want to be underfeeding our horses. We don't want their ribs protruding. We want them to be in good shape. If you're wondering whether your horse is too fat, too skinny, we judge a horse's body condition using what's called a body score, and it ranges from 1 to 9. 1 being very, 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 very skinny, 9 being very, very fat. You ideally want your horse 4.5 is the middle. That's ideal. So, 5 is probably good. If you look at your horse, you don't really want to be able to see the ribs. I think my gauge is I should be able to run my hand over the horse's barrel and be able to feel the ribs, but I don't want them protruding. So that's just kind of a good rule of thumb. And do keep in mind that as the seasons change, your horse moves from grass to hay and from hay to grass, the seasons change. You need to be mindful of how that's going to impact how much you should be feeding your horse because their dietary needs do change throughout the seasons, again, depending on the forage that's available and what kind of activity your horse is getting as well. The second common mistake that horse owners make is having an inconsistent feeding schedule. If my husband is watching this, he is going to laugh at me so hard because for myself personally, I like to keep a routine when it comes to my eating. I eat at basically the same times every day. I'm very regimented. But guess what? Your horses like having a feeding schedule as well. I think there's people who like to make fun of, and there's definitely memes about horses who get a little bit maybe aggressive or cranky when you're late to go feed them. It's not really a joke, you guys. Not having a consistent feeding schedule can actually be really hard on your horse. Horses, just like me, thrive on routine, and having them on an inconsistent feeding schedule can actually cause them just stress and digestive issues, which again, not fun for the horse and can lead to all sorts of issues, again, like colic, which none of us want colic. So the closer you can keep to a consistent feeding schedule, the better. It's not like you need to feed them right at 7 a.m. on the dot every morning, but be within a reasonable amount of time. I'm sure many of you get hangry when your meal doesn't come in at expected time. The same can kind of happen for your horse. The third mistake that horse owners make regularly: improper hoof care. And I don't want to hear some people say, like, horses out in the wild don't have farriers. Yes, very true. But there's also a couple more truths behind that statement. Horses in the wild travel wide distances to get food, which naturally wears down their hooves. And number two, their hooves may not be that great and are therefore causing them issues. So, for our domestic horses who are not traveling miles and miles a day, we need regular scheduled hoof care. And what regular means depends on the time of year and where you live. For where I live here in Alberta, generally it's 4 to 6 weeks in the summer and 6 to 8 weeks in the winter. Regular scheduled trimming for sure. And then if any corrective trimming is needed, tack that on as well. If you're not having your horse's feet trimmed on a regular basis and correctly by a trained farrier, it can cause not just problems for the hoof itself, but they say no hoof, no horse, and that's because the hoof can impact all sorts of things all the way up the horse's body. Their legs, their shoulders, their hips, the whole thing. It's like a domino. If you have bad feet, your horse might throw out something higher up in his body. It is a complete mess. So yes, regular scheduled trims at the bare minimum by a trained professional. The fourth mistake that I see a lot of horse owners make is not providing their horses 24/7 access to clean drinking water. Blows my mind that people do not do this. What? Especially in the winter. I feel like people think, oh, horses, they'll drink less in the winter. Like, they can eat snow. Do not say that. Horses need water in the winter, especially in the winter. If that is a recipe for colic if you're not providing your horse with like properly temperatured drinking water in the winter time. Like, no, they will not eat snow, especially if it's really, really cold out. That is not an option. They need clean drinking water 24/7, especially in the winter to prevent colic. Well, all year round to prevent colic. And in the summer, obviously, just like us, they sweat. They need to replenish that sweat loss by drinking water. I don't know if you need to, doesn't matter, automatic waterers or just a plain old water trough and you got the garden hose, do what you gotta do. Your horse needs water 24/7. Mistake number 5, ignoring dental care. I feel like people don't really think about dental care when they think about horses, but especially if you're riding a horse, but across the board, horses need dental care, but especially if you're riding because we put a bit in their mouth, dental care is really important. I will never forget when I was very young, we had a gelding. I don't know if he had ever had his teeth done. He was 18 years old when we bought him. We had the dentist out. And she sedated him, opened up his mouth, had me put my hand in his mouth. I literally probably could have cut my hand on the sharp points that were digging into his cheek. He was actually packing grass into his own mouth as a way of protecting his cheek from the sharp edges on his teeth. So if that's not enough to convince you to get a dental done on your horse, I don't know what is. And before we move on from this one, there are equine dentists and there are vets. And I caution using a equine dentist. As far as I know, I may be incorrect, but as far as I know, they are not regulated. We had an equine dentist work on a mare that we had a long time ago, and I'm not so convinced she knew what she was doing with the sedation that she was using on that mare, and it was kind of scary. So I will never be using an equine dentist. I will always be calling my vet when I need a dental job done on one of my horses. And speaking of vets, Mistake number 6 is skipping regular vet checks. Again, I feel like this is something that's like, oh, there's nothing wrong with my horse, he's fine. You need regular vet checks, and I would say at least annually. And when you do an annual, I would say get their teeth checked, annual vaccinations, and just let your vet have an overall, like just their annual checkup like you would get at the doctor. We want to just make sure there's nothing brewing below the surface that we need to address. As a not vet person, there might be things that my horse has going on that I'm not aware of because I'm not a vet. I don't know what to look for, right? There's a million things that can go wrong with a horse. I am not educated enough to be able to like identify those early warning signs. I rely on my vet for that. So at the bare minimum, an annual checkup from your vet, just, yeah, peace of mind. It's your insurance policy. What do they say? An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Get your vet out, develop a relationship with your vet. I think that's really important too. A lot of people default to just calling their vet when their horse has a problem. The issue with that is your vet's not familiar with your horse. Your vet doesn't know what is typical for your horse. It's really important, I guess what I'm trying to say, that your vet develop a relationship with you and with your horse for if and when those emergencies pop up. Mistake number 7 really bothers me. So we have the Rocky Mountains. They are, we'll say like a 2-hour drive to really get out into the hills and mountainy area. There's tons of riding trails. We have like Yahatinda, which is a really, really popular place for people to take their horses. The reason I'm telling you this is because I don't know how many people in this area have horses that they take out to Yahatinda. They do not ride those horses at all the rest of the year. So they have these unfit, usually overweight horses. They tack shoes on them once a year, haul them out to Yahatinda, and expect them to ride through the hills and treacherous terrain for days on it, like a week. Like every single day for a week out there. To me, that's animal abuse. That is animal abuse. And they're not the only ones. There's plenty of people, barrel racers, haul their horses out of the pasture in the spring and take them to the barrel race and expect them to run mock turkey at the barrel race. That is animal abuse. Like, I don't think you would appreciate if you were 50 pounds overweight, hadn't moved a muscle for 6 months, and then are expected to go run a marathon. Not fair. Not fair at all. And it also puts it your horse, like your horse is going to be sore. Like riding out at Yahatinda all week, your horse is 100% going to be sore. And on top of that, you're putting them at risk for injury. Like their tendons, their muscles, their joints, none of it is used to that activity. You are putting them at risk for injury. It bugs me so bad. There's nothing wrong with taking your horse out to the Yahatinda, but get them in shape so that they are physically prepared for the time when you do take them out there. It grinds my gears so bad. Either keep your horses in shape or get them in shape before you take them out there, please. And that's not just for trail riding, like across the board. If you're riding your horse, you need to get them on a fitness program. Jack Ballou, check out her stuff for fitness programs for horses. They're really good. Be nice to your horse, you guys. If they're out of shape, you need to get them back into shape. Number 8, poorly fitting tack. So this is everything. Your saddle pad, your saddle, your cinch, your bit, your headstall, even your halter. Like, I think there's a lot of people that do not understand, like, how does a properly fitted saddle sit on a horse? What to look for? Like, basic education like that. Like, Google, YouTube, what does a properly fitted saddle look like? Or like what I did, I physically took my horse to a saddle maker and was like find the saddle that fits my horse. Diesel. I bought the saddle with Diesel because the saddle was made for that horse. And I am so passionate about that because I want you to think about, I don't know, putting on jeans that are like half a size too small. You can get them on, you can do up the button and the zipper, but they're half a size too small. You're gonna be so freaking uncomfortable. With horses, like 10 or 20x that. So you have a poorly fitting saddle, it might pinch in their shoulders or hit their wither or something like that. That's gonna cause pain. And add on top of that, you're putting probably 150 pounds plus of a rider on top of that. Like definitely pain, and could potentially not only cause pain, but actual injuries that the horse is now gonna have to recover from. And if you're riding that horse with that ill-fitting tack on a recurring basis, like you're gonna have a big problem. So if you are not sure how a piece of tack is supposed to fit, seek out the help of a professional. Like Google videos online. YouTube has everything you need to know. Trust me, it does. Figure it out. Do your horse a favor. If your horse, I know lots of people see their horse misbehaving. Oftentimes a trigger for that is that they are in pain. Something is pinching and they are expressing that they are in pain, and we are labeling it as misbehavior. Not fair, not fair. So if your horse is misbehaving, it might be that you have ill-fitting tack. Mistake number 9, not monitoring what is normal for your horse. So this, when I say what is normal for your horse, this encompasses a lot of things. So we might think of just like their vital signs, like their temperature and their heart rate, their respiration rate, but also things like, are they usually the first one to the fence when you come with a bucket of grain? Do they usually completely clean up their hay? Do they, usually nap at this time of day? Are they usually pretty spunky? The reason it's so important to know all of those things is because when there's a change, it's like, red flag, what is wrong? Like if your horse, Scooter, is always the first one to the gate when you come out there with their supper, and he's like hanging out in the back of the pasture with his head kind of low, it's like, there's something wrong with that horse. You need to be addressing it immediately because something's wrong with Scooter. Go fix it. Go call the vet. Yes. So definitely monitoring what's normal for your horse and being mindful of any changes that they have, because horses, they're pretty consistent. They're predictable. They're predictable. You don't need to know a horse even for that long to be able to figure out what their normal is. And mistake number 10, and this is tying into what I said at the beginning. I have become very passionate recently about educating people about horse care, because I think there's a lot of people out there that are not educated about how to take care of their horses, and there's horses that are suffering because of it. Last night I went to someone's place that I know. I'm not gonna say who, but I went to their place and we went out to the pasture because they wanted to show me they had a horse that was limping. And so they wanted me to have a look at it. So I went out with them to see the horse. First off, the horse was very hard to catch, but as we were trying to catch this horse, he was obviously not good. Something definitely wrong in the shoulder region. I have no idea. Obviously, I'm not a vet. I don't know, but something very wrong. But obviously, this horse has not been trained or played with very much, because he was very, very hard to catch, even though he was having difficulties walking. We did catch him with a bucket of grain, and it turns out, I guess they saw this horse limping several days ago, and they have not called the vet yet. He's out in a pasture with a bunch of cows, and his feet are an absolute mess. I don't know if they've ever vaccinated him. I know they've never had his teeth done. I don't think he's broke to ride, which that's fine, but the whole like halter situation, getting him caught, was an issue. Just left out in the pasture and basically neglected. Has all the feed that he wants, so he probably did have a body score of 6.5, 7, so he was on the pudgier side. It made me really upset to see a horse like that. Like upset just in general because he was in that state, but then also seeing that he had an injury that wasn't getting addressed made me like really upset. I did not say anything. I did tell them, you need to call a vet right away. You should have called them when you first saw this. We need to call a vet right now. So I gave them the vet's number. They were going to get the vet out to have a look at him, and that's kind of where I left it. It's not my horse, but you know, the vet's going to come out there and take care of him. So just, yeah, not something that I wanted to see. They do make fun of me because I take such good care of my horses. They do make fun of me for that, and you know, I just kind of, you know, shrug it off and just say, well, I don't have kids. I love staying at the barn, and you know, my horses benefit from that, you know, just whatever. But it just really hammered home. Like, I'd been thinking about this even before that incident, just thinking about how, like, I don't think these people are aware of how detrimental their lack of care is to their horse. They're completely ignorant about it. And it just really stoked a fire in me that, as someone who does know better, I am in a place where I can educate people how to properly take care of their horses. And hopefully through that, there will be fewer horses suffering like this poor guy was. He had such a gentle eye. I felt so bad for him. Hopefully there will be fewer instances like that. You know, horse owners will become more educated and their horses will benefit from that. So you're going to kind of see that with Strong in the Saddle. It's going to start to be a lot more coming from the lens of education and just becoming a more informed horse owner. Because yeah, I've become very passionate about that lately. So if you have any topics that you are interested in, or if like any of these mistakes that I talked about today, if you want more details on specifics on how to properly do things, please be sure to message me, leave me a comment. I would love to hear from you. Be sure to subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Give me a thumbs up, and until next time, remember, it's always a good day to ride.